Tonight on Podcast Them Down, this band looks perfect on paper, but they're not. We're talking about AYREON. Podcast Them Down! Hail Metal Nation! This is Podcast Them Down. I'm Tim, and that was my opinion. I don't know how Mike here feels about AYREON, but I've tried so many times because, again, AYREON looks like the perfect band on paper. But every single time, it just falls flat for me. So, this is the part where we do our ad, if we had advertisers, but we don't. We're supported by patrons, and occasionally. So, find the link in the Patreon down there, and join us there. And I don't know if this is airing in February, but there's one new extra video every week for the month of February, and perhaps for the rest of time. Who knows? Anyway, back to AYREON. Is that how you even say it?
That's how I say it to avoid like really obvious.
It's spelled AYREON.
Yeah. Basically, I think you should. No matter how it's intended to be pronounced, you should pronounce it AYREON so people don't think that you're talking about something hideous. Because I've had that mistake made. I was like, oh yeah, I really love the band AYREON. And they're like, oh, like Aryan music? It's like, whoa! No.
So
okay.
I know I got alerted to the existence of AYREON when they came out, when like the news came out that Russell Allen's going to be on the next AYREON, and James LaBrie is going to be on the next AYREON, and so is Michael Ockerfeld. And I'm like, what? And this is back when Opeth was good. I was like, I have to check this out, like with all those singers. And then I got it, and it's just like, so what's the deal? They're all concept albums?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I am probably what you'd call an AYREON fanboy. I have actually gone to the Netherlands to see AYREON perform. It was awesome. Yes, every single album, save for one, is a concept album.
So I've listened to them. I tried several times to get into it, specifically The Human Equation.
Yeah, which is a good entry point.
The Theory of Everything. Both of those.
John has a big problem with the lyrics. A buddy of ours has a big problem with the lyrics of the Theory of Everything, but I really enjoy the Theory of Everything.
Maybe that was the one that put me off, because it just seemed to me like each of these singers he's hiring is playing a character in these metal operas. All right. So, but it seems just like very, I can't come up with an example, but yes, on the nose is perfect. It's like, I am the doctor and I am worried about the prognosis. Yeah. I am the patient and I am receiving surgery. It's like, it's just like too heavy-handed for me. And like to the point where it ruined it for me.
No, that's fair enough.
But, I did introduce them to the albums to my wife, and she's all about them. So, half the time when I get in her car, there's AYREON. I'm like,
all right. So I think it's important when you look at these albums. So I kind of wanted to discuss like the general history and the concepts of AYREON. And I think you need to understand where, especially for the beginning years, you have to understand the situation that AYREON was in, and then try to like reconcile from there. All right. So the first AYREON CD is The Final Experiment. So The Final Experiment is named
Wait. The first one is called The Final Experiment?
Yeah. Similar to Final Fantasy.
Okay.
It was like, this is the last chance I have to make anything like this work. So it's an interesting album. The concept of this album is that there is a group of scientists that are sending messages back in time to try to alter the future.
All of your explanations, I'm gonna be going, this sounds great. And then maybe I'll pick it up and I'll go, fuck, I hate this. All right, go on.
Okay,
so far this sounds great.
Okay, when this album was recorded without a band name. So we have the album, but there's no name attached to it. But the name was taken for the main character of the Final Experiment, who is AYREON.
Okay. It was all written by AYREON Lucasen.
Yeah, pretty much everything is written by AYREON Lucasen. Yeah, to my knowledge.
The album was originally titled AYREON: The Final Experiment, with the artist listed as AYREON Lucasen. But upon re-release, it was changed to The Final Experiment, and the artist was changed to AYREON. Okay.
Yep. Scientists send these messages back in time, who are received by AYREON, who is a blind minstrel. And the album basically chronicles like what his visions are, like his life, his visions, and his attempts to try to warn people of the dangers that will happen in the future.
Sounds great.
So he goes to Merlin, and Merlin's like, dude, fuck you, and does something to him, and then Merlin's like, damn it, what did I do? And then he eventually is like, you gotta listen to him, man. And then it leaves like this real open-ended thing. It's up to you, the listener, to pay heed to my warnings.
That's a cop-out. And but the reason I say it's a cop-out is that's how the second Iced Earth something Wicked trilogy ends.
Oh yeah.
Not the trilogy, the concept album.
The
Crucible of Man. It ends with "Come What May," which is just basically, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm like, you've been touting this story for a decade. Like, you put all this work into these concept albums, and then the story just kind of goes.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I don't know that AYREON
that was Iced Earth's fault for all the preamble.
Right. Okay, so you've got this concept now, right? This is the foundation. So I don't believe that this was a super successful album, but it was enough to drive him forward. One thing that I find really interesting, as having read about this, one of the vocalists who plays Merlin is Leon Govie, Goewie. They're all Dutch. I love it.
I don't know how you say that.
I love his vocals, but apparently they like hated each other, but they respected each other as musicians.
Okay.
So Leon was like, all right, I'll do it. Like, I'll be on your album. Anyway, so now you have this foundation. Then Actual Fantasy comes out, the second album, and this one is really weird. It's just a bunch of kind of various single purpose stories.
Okay.
It still kind of has the same general themes of like, it goes between fantastical and technological and all this in terms of lyrical themes. But I like this album. I want to say it's got kind of like middling reviews, if I'm not mistaken. But it's
for AYREON albums on Metal Archives, it's down there.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's a good album.
But when I say down there, I mean 78%, which is not that bad, especially on Metal Archives. Yeah, all most of the other ones got better than that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so this happens, but then kind of the first of the super epic AYREON albums, and this is kind of what he becomes known for.
That's the first 2-disc one.
Yeah, Into the Electric Castle. So yeah, it's 2 discs. Vocalists on this album, some of these folks I don't know, some of them I do. But let's see. We have
they have Annika van Giersbergen.
Yeah. Okay, let me go over like the more significant ones that I know, because otherwise I'm just going to sound like
I knew that one though. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So Annika van Giersbergen, who's gone on to do been like a permanent fixture in Devin Townsend project. She also has her own bands like The Gentle Storm and VUR. Damian Wilson is another one who features prominently in AYREON, and Star One, which is another project of Arjen Lucassen's. Who else? Those are the major ones that I know of on the album. But this is a really interesting one. It consists of 8 characters that are summoned to the Electric Castle, and they're basically they have to like just make it through, and they all have various trials and tribulations to fight through. Some of them being kind of more tailored to others. So there's what's the name of the song? Is it The Castle Hall? Yeah, The Castle Hall. It's like, if you've killed people, this is where you're going to see their ghosts, and you're going to get tortured by all the people that you've hurt in your life. So it's basically this group of people going through in a very overwrought way, and eventually they make it to the end where they encounter Forever of the Stars, some alien creature that no longer experiences emotions, and it's doing this to try to recall what emotions are. So the whole reason it's bringing these people through all this is to try to experience emotions again. I don't believe there is any mention of AYREON in this, if I am not mistaken. So this appears at the time to be completely independent of the final experiment.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. So you've got this seemingly independent story and introducing this character, Forever the Stars. Forever the Stars is important.
Okay.
So at the time, this is the cast of this album is not super star-studded, but they're like Annika and Damian Wilson in particular, I think are a little bit fairly prominent, at least in the metal scene, or Annika is in the metal scene anyway. Okay. So the next time the next album comes out, it's another double album, but I think it's actually released as 2 albums. It's called The Universal Migrator. So you've got part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is the Dream Sequencer. Part 2 is Flight of the Migrator. So the Dream
looks like they were released 1 month apart. June 20th, 2000 and July 20th, 2000.
Yeah, they're pretty much a double album. So on the Dream Sequencer, you've got Floor Jansen.
Yay.
You've got Damian Wilson again. You got Neil Morse.
Yeah.
Let's see, Johan Edlund from Tiamat, and Lana Lane. I don't know.
And someone named Mouse.
Yeah, I don't know who Mouse is. But the story of this is basically you have the last person, and they live on Mars. They're the last person of everything. So they go into the dream sequencer, which is just so they can experience history and just pass the time. And this is interesting because if I recall, it actually mentions. Yes. Okay. It makes reference to AYREON. So this album references the Final Experiment. So this is the first album to reference the Final Experiment and the character of AYREON. But at present, this album is basically just kind of like stepping through both fantastical and historical things.
I think I found it. It says it is the 21st century. The final experiment has failed. The final devastating war that was foretold by the blind minstrel AYREON has indeed come to pass. The war has destroyed all life on Earth, making it completely uninhabitable. I hover above my own dead body.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, and then later on the album, it is the 6th century. This is where it all began. My tired body has passed away, but my once tortured spirit is finally free now. My name is AYREON.
There you go. Okay. So all this is interesting. At the end of the dream sequencer, however, he becomes the migrator.
Okay.
So let's dive into what the hell that is.
Yeah.
So Flight of the Migrator is basically about the character seen in the dream sequencer, as I understand it, basically becoming the spark for the universe. And Flight of the Migrator is actually interesting. Well, they're all pretty interesting, but it's interesting for a few other reasons. One of them being Russell Allen, Fabio Leone, Timo Catapelto from Stradivarius, Bruce Dickinson.
Oh, hell. Andy DeReese from Halloween.
You've got Primal Fear, Damian Wilson again.
Ralph Sheepers. I love that Metal Archives wrote him a Sir Russell Allen.
He does that a lot. I don't know why. He's on a lot of stuff as Sir Russell Allen.
Michael Romeo played guitars on track 2,
which is the one that Russell Allen is on. So yeah,
I guess they were a package deal.
Yeah, I guess so. So for the concept here is pretty straightforward. It's basically like the migrator is flying through a bunch of space things, and then blows everything up, and makes the new solar system, I believe. Here, the colonist is told by the old migrator that he is a new migrator, and as his soul separates from his body, his new mission in the universe begins. So like he basically like sparks life, as I understand it. Here's hoping I'm right, and nobody listening to this is like, oh, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
All right, angrily tell Mike how he's wrong in the comments below.
Okay, so fair enough. Here we have this notion of the migrator. We have this notion of like the end of humanity. We have this notion of AYREON disconnected to forever.
Okay.
To the forever of the stars. Okay, so the next album that comes out is The Human Equation. And The Human Equation, I believe, is like their breakthrough album. The cast on this one is like magnificent. We've got James LaBrie from Dream Theater. You got Michael Ackerfeld. Let's see, Eric Clayton, I don't know much about. Irene Jansen. You have Marcella Bovio, who's featured a lot in AYREON projects. Devin Townsend. We've got that's most of the people that I know. There's other people, but I just don't know them as much.
There's someone voice as the sexy cough, Mary Pitkanen. That's what it says.
The fuck.
And then
okay.
There's like I like how when he gets like all extra instruments like flute or cello. They're like the most Dutch names you've ever seen.
Oh yeah. And actually, keep in mind this Joost Vanderbroek, who plays a synthesizer solo. He is in like everything Ayreon nowadays.
Okay.
Okay. So the concept of the human equation. The protagonist James LaBrie, what is his name on the album? It's just as me. Okay, he's in a coma while his wife and his best friend argue about which one of them did this, like which one of them is responsible. Okay. And then the rest of the album is basically him encountering his emotions personified, who are played by all these various people.
So it's that Pixar movie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But basically him trying to come to terms with his life, his childhood, the things he regrets, the things he doesn't regret, so on and so forth. But at the very end of this, the very final line mentions the dream sequencer. And there's a voice that says like emotions, I remember. And it's the same voice that is Forever of the Stars from Into the Electric Castle. So now all the albums save for Actual Fantasy are connected just with this, right? Like right now we've got them all connected. So somehow the Forever know about the dream sequencer, and the dream seeker knows about Ayreon, the blind minstrel. Okay. So now we've got everything is connected in some way.
Yeah, like James LaBrie being in a coma has nothing to do with anything.
No.
Until the last 5 seconds.
Yeah, the story of this album to the overall chronology of the Ayreon concepts is irrelevant, except for the fact that it apparently takes place within the dream sequencer.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting. Now you have 010110001, which is the ASCII value of Y.
Thank you for saying ASCII, because I hit additional notes because I'm following along on Metallica here. And it says, is the binary for the letter Y. It's like, no, it's not.
Okay.
Ooh,
so the cast on this...
I'm looking at the cast.
The cast here is crazy. You have Tom Englund from Evergrey. Annika van Gisbergen from Everything. Daniel Gildenlow from Pain of Salvation, which gets my heart aflutter. Floor Jansen. Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian. Jorn Land. Jonas Renske from Catatonia, Simone Simons.
Yep. Floor Jansen comes back.
Ty Tabor from King's X. We have Magali Luyten, and Steve Lee. I don't really know them, or Bob Catley. I feel like I should know Bob Catley, but I don't.
Wasn't he that comedian in the 80s?
Yeah. Bob Catley Goldthwait.
Derek Sherinian did a synthesizer solo.
Yep.
Michael Romeo did another guitar solo.
Yep. Yeah. So the story of Y, I'm going to call it Y because I don't want to call it 0111111. So the story here, though, is that Forever of the Stars, that was a single creature into the Electric Castle, is now a race of people that are called the Forever.
Okay.
And this story is about them, they who have lost their emotions. They've lost their emotions and they're trying to regain them. And this documents like their attempts to change history so that they will have never lost their emotions. So this goes and describes them being the scientists that send the memories back to AYREON.
I'm looking at these lyrics and it just seems so tedious.
Well, this album is a little bit different because it has like these interconnect between the story bits are like weird middle things where it's just sort of, I don't know, fun commentaries on modern life, I guess.
Tell me if this is one of those. Off, on, off, off, on, off.
That's from Age of Shadows.
On, off. On, on, off, on, off, on, off. Off, on, off, on, off, on. Off, on, off, on, off.
Yeah.
Off, on, off, off, on, off, on. Off, on, off. Off, on, off. No, yeah. No, yeah. No, oh my God. It's clearly supposed to be binary.
Yeah, well, the
like,
other
I already hate it.
The other thing is that these are like these are background voices over a much more prominent melody.
Okay, good. Because if I had to listen to that part, if I wanted to listen to Morse code metal, I'd be listening to Fear Factory.
Yeah, basically that's about right. Okay, so, but in this album, what we have here is, the aliens are like arguing amongst one another. It's like, we don't feel, there's no love anymore. We don't feel this. We don't feel that. We need to fix this. So they go and they send a comet to Earth and they start like the evolutionary process. And here's an interesting thing. Into the Electric Castle, there's an offhand comment made by the character Forever of the Stars about how evolution was kicked off by a child's errant comet or something like pet comet.
Yeah,
he makes
find that real quick.
Yeah. He makes it sound like, we didn't even mean to do it. But in this one, it's like, no, it's not this is like a thing that we're doing. It's on purpose because we need to kickstart evolution so that we can observe humans and see what it's like to have emotions.
Here it is. We vanquished the dinosaurs with the careless trajectory of a child's lost meteorite.
Yeah.
We peopled your planet to experience your emotions. Such feelings lost to us eons ago.
Yeah, so like in the story on why they're like, we're going to send that comet there, and they have like this big philosophical debate about like, do we have the right to do this? Should we do this? And then eventually, as everything fails, but at the end they do remember what it's like to have emotions.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So I have some issues. This is where I start really having.
Unfortunately, that emotion they feel is ennui.
That's pretty good. All right. This is where I start having like some serious problems with the story. Because before this, the connections were very loose,
right?
If present at all. But this one ties them together like real hard. And this is where at some point in your life, you've read a story or you've watched a movie that came after some other, that was a sequel or related in some way, but it came afterwards, and now they found themselves in a position where they have to justify their current story with something that happened in the previous story that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So retconning, right?
Yeah.
Now, so here's where we have to start. Sort of, this is where the retconning begins in terms of the AYREON chronology.
Well, that's how a lot of the Ghostbusters, the recent Ghostbusters ones seem to work.
Right.
I think they did a pretty good job, because if you like, in the newest one, The one where like Egon's ghost shows up. Spoiler alert. From
I like saying this
3 years ago.
I like saying the spoiler alert after the spoiler.
So yeah, but like they made it seem like this has all been planned. Like every little bit that doesn't make sense, that just seemed like archaic nonsense when they're talking about it. You know?
Yeah.
Like the River of Slime, like the and where the asylum where the one guy went, that like they referenced in a video game. Like they even tied the video game in.
Oh Jesus.
So I'm expecting AYREON's retconning to not be as watertight.
No. Yeah, so the retconning starts having issues here because, for one, you know, it converts Forever of the Stars, the creature, into this whole race. There's a lot more things here are like way more intentional than they're presented previously. You know, Forever is clearly like, oh, you know, we accidentally blew up the dinosaurs, so we just decided to put some people here and see what's going on. But in this album, they're like desperate. It's like, we need to remember emotions. Like, we're dependent on it. But the biggest issue I have is if you truly had a people without emotions, why would they do anything?
You're right. Because they're sad. You can't be sad that you lost emotions.
No, it's exceedingly difficult to write characters who have no emotions because they have no drive.
Right.
I mean, like,
you just blew my mind.
The thing about Data from Star Trek is that Data has like this directive to become more human, right? But right. They just have no emotions, so it's like, why would you even have a philosophical debate? You have no desire. Like, you have no drive, you have no will, want, nothing. So I start having issues now. I will say this quickly. Arjen Lucassen is like, he's a very active online person. So I want to say that if Arjen ever were to listen to this, I love Arjen. I love everything he does. Just in terms of the story is where things start unraveling for me.
Oh, maybe I should change the intro then.
Okay, so yeah, you know, concept-wise, fairly straightforward, except I feel like the foundations of it are like cracking.
Okay.
All right, so the next album in the chronology is actually The Theory of Everything, which has nothing to do with any of the rest of this, which I am happy about, because I started getting kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this whole overarching plot at this point. So The Theory of Everything also has a pretty intense cast, and they pretty much all do from here on out. Oh no, they don't have like the actual. Oh, here we go.
It's there.
You have Tommy Karavik, Marco Hietala, Tommy Karavik from Everything, Seventh Wonder and Camelot, Marco Hietala from Nightwish. You have, let's see, Michael Mills from Toehider, who I know is not, I don't think he's particularly well known, but he's a ludicrous vocalist. And a bunch of others.
Troy Donockley, who played the low whistle and the pipes. I'm not saying that word. He's also Nightwish.
But you also have Rick Wakeman from Yes and Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Wow.
Guest on here. Steve Hackett from Genesis.
Jordan Rudess.
Yeah.
Christina Scabia. I mean, those aren't as big names as the other ones.
Yeah. John Wetton from Asia.
Oh, he's like, get me everyone from these.
Yeah.
From 1982. Go.
Well, now Arjen's to a point where he's like, I can actually ask my musical heroes to be in bands.
That's cool.
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I can't blame him. Like, what a fucking cool
There's a band called Ancient Bards. One of their singers is on it.
Okay, and then Grand Magus. I know Grand Magus.
Oh yeah, I love several Grand Magus albums.
Well, he's JB from Grand Magus. He's just like got this deep, sexy voice going throughout the whole album. So the story of The Theory of Everything is there is Tommy Karavik, the prodigy, who his dad, Michael Mills, is like a brilliant scientist, and he's trying to come up with the theory of everything, but he can't quite do it. It's hard, and he's distracted by his home life, and it turns out that the prodigy has some sort of intellectual disability. It's sort of implied to be something like ADHD or autism. It's something unspecified. And it's basically, it starts off with the father trying to complete the theory of everything, and then being like, I just don't have time for this kid. And then the kid goes to school. The teacher, who's JB from Grand Magus, is like, how'd you solve this? How'd you do this proof? It's impossible. How did you do it? And here's my first point of contention with this story. So I will say this, for the human equation, there's some interpersonal drama, but it's all kind of like, I felt this way and I did this thing, and they're vague where they need to be. So he doesn't have to be like a subject matter expert on whatever it is that he's talking about. Right. But here, Marco Hietala is the rival, so he does not like the prodigy. And he says to the teacher's like, how did you do this proof? And the rival's like, don't believe him. He just wants to be like me. It's like, you can't do that with math.
Right.
You can't just be like, oh no, he's just copying me. It's like, he still solved the fucking thing. Like, you can't pretend it's jealousy. It's a finite language. Like it's discrete. The vocabulary is limited. There's very little you can do to like kind of like the closest thing that I know of in math to, I don't know, like a bullshit essay is like an inductive proof, which still has a very solid foundation, right? Like you can't just say, "Oh, no, he's a loser."
He copied my proof. Well, where's your proof? My dog ate it.
So the album goes on, and then eventually the prodigy's mom and dad talk to the psychologist, who's like, oh, well, you could try this medicine. It's not proven, but it seems to be pretty safe. And the dad's like, yeah, I want help with my theory of everything. And the mom's like, dude, no, you can't give this to my kid. So then the dad gives it to the kid, kind of surreptitiously, and then the kid's like brilliant now. But then it turns out the medicine is actually bad.
I think I saw an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia about this. When Charlie participated in the experiment and the smartening experiment and learned Mandarin in a day.
That's amazing.
Stupid science bitch couldn't make I more smarter.
Okay.
Well, it turns out Charlie didn't get smart. He was just convinced he was smart.
That's pretty awesome.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. So eventually, they're not giving him the medicine anymore, but he wants the medicine because it helps him think straight. And then the rival is like, I can help you, but you have to help me break into the banks and break their algorithm. And it's like, no, you can't do this with math. You can't do this with math. Like the instant you start hand waving at math, it's all over. You can't do it. So he does it again. They break the algorithm of the banks, and they get tons of money and pills. And there's the girl who's like the Prodigy's love interest, and she's like, I can't deal with you anymore. I can't believe you'd break into the bank and break the algorithm. So at the end of the album, he completes the theory of everything and then goes into a horrible coma. And that's the end of the album. So I really like the album.
Oh, another coma.
Yeah. Maybe it could be another human equation. But there's no obvious ties to the rest of the Ayreon chronology here.
I did a text search as well on all the lyrics. Yeah, I couldn't find anything.
So then comes the source, and we're back to the Ayreon concept. Right. So the concept of this album is it's the race that becomes the forever. Okay. And how it happened.
How they lost their whatever.
Yeah, their emotions.
Their emotions. I mentioned the Matrix earlier. The album cover looks exactly like the Matrix. It does. Person in a pod, like maybe like a tadpole egg, but with like technology and hoses.
All right, so this one, you've got James LaBrie, Tommy Karavik, Tommy Rogers.
I have to interrupt you. 011 10 100 0111 0010 011.
Is that in the source?
Yeah, there's more binary in there.
What track is that on?
That's track 1.
I couldn't even tell you where that is for what it's worth. It's very...
Yeah, I bet it's in the background or something,
yeah.
But TH1 says it. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, actually, never mind.
Now
I know which part that is. It's cooler than it sounds, I promise.
Hey, there's Joost van den Broek.
Yep, because he's in everything. So here we have James LaBrie, Tommy Karavik, Tommy Rogers from Between the Buried and Me, which I guess we can forgive him for. Simone Simons from Epica. Let's see, Tobias Sammet, Hansi Kirsch. I knew I was going to get that one for Tobias Sammet. Mike
Hansi.
Mills again.
Yeah,
Hansi, Mike Mills.
Sir Russell Allen as the president.
Floor Jansen. There's some others that I don't know.
Yeah,
but the story here.
Oh, the Michael Erickson is in Circus Maximus.
Okay, I don't know much about Circus Maximus. I've heard of my Wrath.
Yeah, My Wrath. The guy from My Wrath is in it, and I thought I recognized one more. Was it Paul Gilbert?
Oh, Paul Gilbert and Guthrie Govan.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, actually.
Yeah, shit. Played guitars, obviously. You don't want them as your vocalists.
Damn, how did I not know that? Man, okay. Anyway, the song, the story here is basically, they live on planet Alpha, and they're humans, and they have this computer called the Frame that it basically kind of manages the planet and tries to solve all of its issues, and then eventually it's like, in order to save the planet, I just have to I have to kill all the people.
That's every science fiction thing, with two smart computers.
Right. So this story chronicles a group of people that escape, and then with varying degrees of insanity. They have track titles like "Everybody Dies," which is like an awesome song. Run Apocalypse Run, which sounds like an anime episode title. But they go to Planet Y, and here's where I have an issue with this particular a story, and they escape Alpha, which is destroyed. They have their computer pet,
Wait, what? So there's a planet. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a planet Alpha and a planet Y, even though those are two different lettering systems.
Yes.
What's the Greek equivalent of Y? I think is epsilon, right?
Or sounds
epsilon.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the story is basically them kind of like debating how to get off the planet, and then once they get off the planet, what exactly to do.
It's upsilon, not epsilon. Upsilon.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Upsilon. What I don't understand about this story is why a non-aquatic species would then go to a water planet.
Maybe Kevin Costner's there.
It's not clear to me that they're unable to go someplace else. But they do, or they don't. And then they make themselves liquid eternity, which is the thing that lets them live forever, but it also takes their emotions away.
Okay.
So they live underwater and they have no emotions. And now they're, and there they go. One thing is at the very end of this album. Another thing is at the very end of this album.
Something's like tacked on?
No, nothing's tacked on.
All right.
Sort of. Their computer pal, played by Michael Mills, becomes the new frame. But I don't think this ever resolves into anything problematic on the album Y. Right. So like the frame destroyed Alpha, and then you've got the new frame on planet Y. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't have any implications other than the fact that there's lots of machines.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to be a problem. So I'm not sure. The track March of the Machines, by the way, I really like. It just sounds super menacing. I'm just not sure what the ending problem is. It's like, okay. Yeah, there's a new frame. He doesn't kill anybody. We're good. And that leaves us with the last album, the last AYREON album. So far. It is not so far. It is not tied in any way into the previous, except for one thing that you could argue, but is more of a reference than it is a true like tying together. Transitus, the cast here: Tommy Karavik, Cammie Gilbert from Oceans of Slumber, who I think is a fantastic vocalist. Dee Snider is on here. Amanda Somerville from Trillium. Let's see, Michael Mills again. Marcella Bovio, Simon Simons. Tom Baker, who is the narrator, who was the actor he was one of the Doctor Who actors from the 80s. Cool. Yeah. Satriani, Marty Friedman. Nice. Yeah. So yeah, the story of this one, I don't think there's anything that brings me out of this one too bad. But actually there is one thing. Okay, so Cammie Gilbert and Tommy Karavik fall in love. Tommy Karavik's from this rich highfalutin family, and Cammie Gilbert,
his character.
Yeah. Oh yeah. His character is from this rich. I don't know a thing about Tommy Karavik in real life. And Cammie Gilbert. Okay. Tommy Karavik plays Daniel, who's from a highfalutin family. Cammie Gilbert plays Abby, who is a servant for the highfalutin family. This is set in 1884, and it is noteworthy in terms of the story that Abby is black and Daniel is white. So the story opens with Daniel dying in a horrible fire, and Abby going to her father saying, "I killed him. Why did I do it?"
They really punted on the album cover here.
Yeah, it was supposed to be something else, and then it was adapted into this album.
Okay.
Interestingly. So Daniel goes into Transitus, which is basically like, oh my God, why can I not think of the...
Purgatory?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
He basically goes into Purgatory. He talks to Simons, who's like, why should I listen to you? You don't get any more time. And then he tells the whole story about he and Abby fell in love, and then his brother's like, she just wants your money. And his dad's like, you can't just marry the servants. I'm going to kick you out, but I'm going to give you a mansion and money, so don't worry about it. But I'm a jerk. Get out of my
house and get into this house.
Yeah, where you're going to live on your own, and you have everything that you need. One thing they really never talk about, like the lyrics for the song where Dee Snider kicks Daniel out.
Okay.
He's like, we don't mix with the staff. We keep to our own. It's like, you're really not going to address the racism problem? Right. Like they mention it once at the very beginning, just as like, oh, this is a world of like opposites, like black and white, rich and poor. But other than that, everybody's problem with Abby is that she's a servant, and Daniel's like the aristocracy. They never talk about the fact that they're racist.
Right.
So they never address it. And also the whole fact that he's like, get out into this other mansion, please. I'll give you money, whatever you need. You can just live happily, but you have to get out of this house. Go into this other one, please. Okay, so he kicks him out. Abby, I only know this because I have the comic. After a night of passionate rogering.
Wait, there's a comic?
Yes, I have the comic.
We're going to need you for a comic review because I don't know if it's aired yet, but Dave and I did a comic review for the one of the Amon Amarth comics. So
okay. Okay.
Stay tuned for a future episode. Anyway,
he posted it. All right, so after a night of passionate rogering, Abby gets up.
Rogering.
Abby gets up and lights a candle and goes downstairs, and then the wind blows the candle over and it lights the house on fire and kills Daniel.
Oh no.
And that's what happened. And now all the townsfolk are like, Abby killed him. She did it for his money. And then Abby's stepmom is like, I'm sort of kind of telepathic, maybe. And she killed him. I know it. So she plots with the brother to basically convince Abby to... She plots with Daniel's brother to convince Abby to kill herself. And then she does. But the whole story, Daniel's kind of a ghost. And, in purgatory, he's told, like, you can't interact with anybody. So right after Abby goes to kill herself by lighting her house on fire, because she's in her own house now for some reason, I don't know why. Daniel's like, wait a minute, I'm a ghost and I can't interact with anybody, but I'm going to become a tornado and talk to my stepmom, or her stepmom. And I guess I can interact with her. I don't know why I can interact with her, and I couldn't do this with anybody else. And then Daniel's like, no, she didn't do it. And then, of course, the stepmom, being a good stepmom, instead of racing back to try to rescue Abby, goes to her house and is like, oh, no, I suck. And then her husband goes and dies along with Abby. And then the stepmom dies because she falls down the steps. And then everybody goes to hell or heaven based on how good they were. So Abby and Daniel are in heaven. The dad is never talked about again. I don't know what happened to him. Presumably he went to heaven. But the stepmom is definitely in hell. According to the comic, the brother is in hell. So yeah, that's the end. It's bizarre. I really enjoy this album. Cammie Gilbert is a super strong vocalist. Highly recommend Oceans of Slumber. I just recently started listening to them. Very interesting.
You glossed over the fact that one of the songs is called This Human Equation.
Yes, I did.
Human equation a bunch of times.
Yes, that is true. So I kind of mentioned it at the beginning that it's just sort of a reference. It does not tie the story to the human equation, though. It's more of like, oh, humans are so interesting. Like that's the plot of the song, or the lyrics of the song.
I think it's more like nudging you. It's like, hey, because we had an album called this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's all the concepts of AYREON explained as I can explain them. It's, I don't, despite the glaring plot issues, if you compare this to other concepts, none of them, other concept albums, it's not like any of them are particularly immune to this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We'll
do the Seventh Wonder episode.
Oh my goodness. I love their concepts are fucking hysterical.
Great albums, but
yeah, I love them. It's just I personally have a problem where if I listen to a story and I hear something and it's like, oh well, I know this other thing, I have to reconcile these two, and I can't let it go. And I either have to make fun of it or I have to make it make sense. So I've decided to make fun of these particular plot holes.
I don't think anyone will blame you.
And that's it.
All right.
AYREON.
Well, until next time, Metal Nation, keep your guest musician list long and increasingly full of your heroes until you can't afford it anymore. These farewells are getting awfully specific.